Liability. It's 8:08 in the morning on your Cornelius Custom Service 8 o'clock hour. Brought in the taxi, opened the door, and here comes Joe, the Brian Insurance guy.
Here we are.
Here we are, right here on this great Wednesday, on the in the month of November. You know, a lot of folks in November, I know myself, we are out there trying to get the coolest thing you could possibly get to eat for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
We're trying to roast a pig.
Cool.
At our house, you know, might want to go out and try to get a turkey, bring in some deer, things like that. But, you know, there are rules. Every time I go to do something, my wife, the insurance agent at Brian Insurance, is always telling me, do you understand the liability on that?
Exactly.
Even if you're going to go hunting.
Yes. Yes, one of the big things, especially in our neck of the woods, where you have a lot of landowners that will let folks lease their land out either for grazing cattle or for hunting. You need to make sure that you have enough coverage for that. You know, whether you have a farm and ranch policy, whether you have a homeowner's policy, if you're letting others out on your property for hunting, incidental or not, whether you've got high game fences or not, you need to be sure that you're covered. And a lot of folks say, why? Oh, what's going to happen? Oh, nothing's going to happen. Well, a lot of the land that is leased is near public roads where, perfect example, perfect scenario, and insurance agents like myself are great at coming up with scenarios. But, father and son going out hunting for the first time, dad's taking his son out for the first time, want to get him a buck, want to get him a pig, something like that. In the blind, squaring it up, looking through the sights. He's talking his son through it. Son fires a shot, misses because inexperienced gun owner or inexperienced gun user. Shot goes high, shot goes wide. Next thing you know, that bullet is traveling pretty fast and strikes something that was not intended to strike, whether it be a car, gosh forbid, another person, some other piece of property, causes damage. The liability aspect, is pretty high. And so as a landowner, you're opening yourself up to lawsuits because let's just go the round, because it's happened before. You see it sometimes at gun ranges in the Metroplex. There was a story years ago about a gentleman that was at a gun range firing a high caliber rifle, and the bullet went where it wasn't supposed to go and actually ended up going through the top of a camper at Texas Motor Speedway. There's a gun range about a mile away from there, maybe less than a mile. And it's not like the shooter was intending to do that, but it happens. Accidents happen. And so when you look at the land that's out there and the folks that lease that out, accidents happen. And when that accident happens, the person that the accident happened to, the victim, so to speak, not only are they going to go after the person who did that, but you better be darn sure they're going to go after the landowner who owns the land. Yeah,
they're going to go after anybody they can get their hands on.
Exactly.
They're going to go after the guy who made the shell. They're going to go after the guy who made the gun. They're going to go after, any and everybody they can get,
it up the chain.
No matter who it is. And the only way you can be prepared for that is take out a policy against it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's actually pretty darn cheap. We've had some policies we've been looking at over at Brian Insurance here the past couple of weeks because we're looking at some farm and ranch policies, and one of the questions that they always ask on those farm and ranch applications is, do you lease your land out for hunting? And a lot of folks do. The other thing when you're talking about leasing that land out is a lot of times it's like a gentleman's agreement, kind of a handshake. Hey, you're going to lease it for X amount of dollars for X amount of time, and there's really no contract or anything drawn up. There really needs to be. There needs to be some type of something drawn up in writing to show, hey, it's this amount of acreage or it's this parcel of property or what have you. But then on the same token, they're asking for, hey, we need to see proof of liability coverage for those hunters. And we've actually found a product that will cover the hunters themselves I was kind of floored at the cost. Really, really inexpensive for $1 million worth of coverage. And, it's funny when you start throwing around numbers like $1 million and everybody says, oh, man, $1 million is a lot of money. It is and it isn't when you're talking about a liability claim, because that claim is not just maybe what somebody gets paid out from a settlement, but it's also the cost to defend you, which can get pretty pricey as well. You start getting lawyers involved and things like that. So when you put out a term, $1 million worth of coverage, that's usually the floor. That's kind of where it starts. You can obviously go up from there, but we've got a policy, Bryan Insurance, that we're looking at specifically for landowners that lease their land out. It's something that, in my opinion, the course of action would be say, hey, Bob, we'll just call him Bob the hunter, you're going to lease my land. Well, part of you leasing my land is getting this policy, and this policy holds not only puts liability coverage for you, the hunter, and guests that you may bring out, but it puts me on the policy as additional insured. So if something happens, I'm covered under that policy as a landowner myself.
What if you're a hunter and you cause damage to somebody else's property? Is there something for that also?
Typically the policy itself is just covering the liability aspect of it. The property damage is something separate. Anything that, whether it be, quite honestly, you see it a lot of times too, that a lot of oil wells or oil tanks or whatever are on these properties where folks are out hunting. So we need to look at something different if that's what you're going to get into and that's something that you're concerned about. I always tell folks, whether it's a house or a car, commercial property, whatever, everything in this world is insured. It's just a matter of who's going to write the check. Are you going to write it, or is the insurance company going to write it? So when you're looking at property damage, there are ways to get that stuff covered. It's just a different policy that we have to look at. And so if it's not a policy that you're looking at getting to cover that, then you're basically self-insuring it, which is, i.e., you get to write the check.
So folks might want to call up and ask some questions, because
yes.
I know we just really kind of got into the hunting season around here, but there's a lot of landowners around here. There's a lot of folks out that are using those lands and things like that. They really need to call you and talk to you about it, because they probably have some questions thinking, I've always...
I've been
years and
doing
years,
this for 20 years.
Yeah, for years and years.
Yep.
I've just walk in and said, hey, so-and-so, you can have the lease every year. Give me a check and roll on, you know. But probably need to check it out.
And, guys, it's cheap. It's really, really inexpensive to get that policy. It's basically an annual policy. You get it. You have your the person that's leasing the land from you get it, and put the hunters down on it, and it's a really inexpensive way to kind of add that extra layer of protection. Gosh forbid something happens, there's some coverage on there, because it's typically not going to be covered on a standard farm and ranch policy, definitely not on a homeowner's policy, stuff like that. So it's all about making sure you're protected, making sure you don't get into a situation where after the fact you come back and say, I thought that was covered.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah, that's always the fact, is that before you do anything, I have found this out living with an insurance agent.
Yes.
You ask the question before you go into it, what do I have to do?
Exactly. And it's so funny you say that, because I start thinking of things like that as well before I, like, for example, you're going to build a deck on your house. Okay, how high are we building it? How many steps? Do we need to have a rail? Yes, we need to have a rail. Do we need to have a handrail going down the steps? Yes, we do. And so it's funny, you start thinking in that mind frame, and we're not trying to paint doom and gloom scenarios all the time. It's just, it's one of those things that it's our job to look and evaluate risk, to make sure that after the fact you don't come back and say, I didn't realize that wasn't covered. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize I'm going to have to write this check.
Yeah, Sonia tells me all the time. She said, you have to look at the worst case scenario in every situation.
Exactly.
So I never do that. I always look at the most fun in it in every situation, but you got to do what you got to do. All right, folks need to give you a call, find out what's up, how they do that.
Really easy, 549-2525. You can call, talk to Ann, Lynette, myself. We'll be more than happy to take a look at that for you. Any commercial needs that you may have, you're thinking of starting a business, something like that, give Brad, give Ty a call. You can come up to the second floor of the Sierra Bank building and be more than happy to help you out, and just, as always, make sure you're covered the way you need to be.
Go give them a call today. Go by and see them, and you'll be glad you did. All right. Thank you, Joe, for coming by and visiting with us.
Hey, thank you, Rick.
We're going to get things kicked off here in your Cornelius Custom Service 8 o'clock hour with Jimmy Buffett, the Doobie Brothers, and we're going to get it rolling right now. So stick around. Stay tuned. Don't you go away.